That really happened?
Yes, it did.
That hurts. That hurts to hear.
So to bring it all up to speed, so I was talking to a church leader, and because a lot of times I'm working with church leaders one-on-one, just helping them navigate technology and just utilize it better, communicate. We're talking about texting, and he was telling me how he had a fail where he sent out a text message to his leadership, and the text message said, "Can't wait for sexy time tonight." And what was so funny about it is it's just like, that can happen to any of us. Like,
we've all sent a text message to the wrong person at some point.
Yeah, and like, especially if you're texting your spouse all day and everything, and he just did that. He was previously texting his wife, and then he went to a group text, forgot he was in a group text, and it was just so funny.
Oh, no.
Man. So texting fails.
Yes.
I mean, there's
Churches do have texting fails as well.
Yes.
Let's just be honest. As church leaders, as we are messaging and communicating with our people, we're utilizing these tools like mass text messaging because it's the best way to communicate with your members, bar none.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the open rates. Like, the open rate for church text messaging is like, what, 98%?
Yes, 98% of text messages are opened and read by the recipient within 3 minutes of being received, which is like 5 times or almost 5 times the rate of email.
Yeah.
Email can go days before it's read.
Which, I mean, email's great, but it's still, like, when you compare it to text messaging, especially in the United States, like, it just is no comparison in the open rate of that.
So a lot of church leaders are looking to church mass texting tools like what we offer with ChurchTrac messaging to communicate with their members. But the same pitfalls with like personal texting apply to church mass texting. So we need to cover that to make sure that you don't make these mistakes on behalf of the church.
Yeah.
We actually wrote, or I should say I wrote. Actually, it was something that you wrote a long time ago, and then I updated it recently.
Well, because we're always trying to make sure we're putting out content that's relevant for the time.
Yes.
We never want to have an article that's like sitting out there that's like, it was relevant 5 years ago, but not anymore.
Right. It's the church texting checklist. Now, this is something that every one of us needs to check off as we type up and are preparing to send any messaging out to our members. The first item on the checklist is the time check.
This is so key, man.
Yes, this is step one. You have to make sure that whatever text you're sending out to your members is sent at a good time for them to receive it. What I mean is, don't ever text your members anything at like 7 p.m. on a Friday, because they're not going to read it. They're going to be busy hanging out with their family.
Or, I mean, pastor could be having sexy time.
Yeah, they could be busy. But also, the people that do see it, that's going to be annoying or frustrating, because that's like the worst time. They just finished a long work week. They're winding down. They're hanging out with their family. They don't want to receive something that they need to act upon from anyone, whether it be the church or anyone else. So, like, unless it's a big emergency, don't ever text your members en masse Friday evening.
Now, that was just like one situation, but I mean, it really just comes down to your ministry and what you're texting about.
Yes.
Because if like you're texting someone who's a first-time guest that maybe just visited your church, well, maybe the most opportune time to text them is literally within a couple hours of them visiting your church.
Yeah, it's usually within like 24 hours is the best time.
And so it really just comes down to what is the nature of this text message and what is the best time to reach that person for the nature of that message.
Yeah, research in general suggests that like Thursdays around lunchtime, lunch or early afternoon, is the best time to send a message out to people, especially in like an official capacity, not just personal texting one-on-one, but on behalf of an organization, because you're catching them just in time as they're starting to make their weekend plans. Not so early that they don't know what's up this weekend, but also not so late that they've already made plans.
Yeah.
So Thursday, early afternoon, lunchtime is the best time. But again, context matters.
It does.
Who you're contacting and why will determine when's the best time to send that message.
I think one of my favorite features of our texting platform, and a lot of texting platforms offer this, is the ability to like schedule a text message.
Yes.
Because like as a pastor, like you may have your most productive time at like, I don't know, 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, or maybe it's like 2 a.m. on, I don't know, a Saturday night because you're just a night owl and that's how you roll.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is like, when you're in those productive hours and you're typing out these text messages you want to send out, you don't want to send them at that time.
No.
And so you can schedule text messages to be sent at a specific time on a specific day. And I work with a lot of church leaders. That's what they do is they'll plan out like the next 10 days or 2 weeks or something of text messages they want to send.
Yeah.
And so then they plan it out. They don't have to think about it again, and it's sending them out.
Perfect.
So that's a great tool to be able to utilize.
Now the next thing is spell check, and that one's pretty obvious. There are a lot of applications that you can add to like your browser or just have running on your computer as you're typing anything.
Yeah.
That help a lot. I use Grammarly whenever I'm writing anything for ChurchTrac, just to make sure everything's copacetic.
Yeah.
I don't want to put anything out there with major typos because that looks incompetent.
It does.
It would make us look really incompetent. And that's the case with your church. Any text you send out on behalf of your organization, your church or ministry, if it has spelling errors, it will make you look incompetent, or I don't know what other word to use. Just incompetent is the word that comes to mind.
Another pastor, I love my job because I get to just talk to pastors and we get to have real talks about, just like fails in this regard. He was telling me that he sent out a text message to his people, and you could probably pull up the picture here. Let me show people what I'm talking about. But he said, "Hey, church fam, are you looking for some swerving opportunities?" And he told me one of his people actually replied back like, "Oh, I'm a safe driver," as a joke. And then he had to send another text reiterating it's serving opportunities, not swerving opportunities.
Yeah. And see, that's actually that's a good point. The fact that he had to send a follow-up to correct the mistake. For most mass texting platforms, that costs your church money to use, whether you're paying like a monthly subscription or paying as you use it per text, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's a penny per text or something like that. You send out a mass text to all of your people. And depending on your church size, that can cost a couple dollars.
Yeah.
And then you have to send a follow-up immediately after. You've just doubled the cost of that text.
Yeah, and so it's just wasting money.
You just wasted money. And that even goes back to the time check. If you send a text out to a bunch of people at a time that no one's going to see it, then you've just wasted money.
Yeah, because then you're going to resend it again the following day or whatever it is. Perception check. This is one that is it can be tough.
It's tricky.
Because when it comes to text messaging, I mean, we talk about this all the time, like with church communication and just communication in general. Text messaging is hard to give people the tone.
Right.
It's hard to really inflect the tone of what you're trying to accomplish in that regard. And sometimes there are messages we want to send as church leaders that really, as much as we want to send them text messages, is not the place to do it.
No, and I talk to a lot of church leaders as well. We both do this. And I'm kind of this way as well. Like, I love to be funny and make jokes and get people to laugh.
Yeah.
Texting is not the platform for that kind of humor or that tone. It just isn't.
It's one thing when you're in a group text with a bunch of buddies, but when you're sending out a mass text to maybe 150 people, 1,000 people, whatever.
Sarcasm can be really risky.
Yes, it can.
In text. Because you can't convey the nonverbals. The body language and the vocal inflection, that's not present in just hard text. So you need to think about how people will perceive whatever message you're sending out. Make sure that no one's going to misunderstand, be offended, or just be confused by it.
Yeah. So this next one, audience check. Another funny thing. So I was talking to a pastor who was getting everything set up for his text messaging. And he went ahead and sent out his first text message. The first text message they sent out was for a women's event. They sent it out to their entire church, though. So instead of sending this text message to all the women who would be interested in this women's event, he sent it to the entire church. And a lot of guys get this text message and are just like, I'm a dude.
I ain't going.
What does this have to do with me? And that's why it's so important to really just kind of think through, like, checking your audience. Like, all right, who is the audience this text message is to? Is it to my entire church? Is it just to the women in our church? Is it just to the people who are currently volunteering in our church? Because that is a struggle with text messaging too, is we can send these text messages in blanket to our entire church when it only applies to a small segment. And when we don't segment these text messages, we can start causing our people to, worst case scenario, unsubscribe because they're like, none of this has to do with me. I'm just going to unsubscribe. Or they just plain out ignore the text messages. And that's what I do. Like my previous church, they would send out text messages all the time to the entire church. They never segmented anything. And it got to a point where I was just like, none of this applies to me, and I unsubscribed.
Yeah.
Because why do I want to hear about some event about some homeschool group? I don't have kids. Like,
you didn't.
Well, at the time. Now
Yeah.
I've got kids and it's great. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and again, that goes, I don't want to tie everything to cost because not everything is about money. This is ministry. But again, this is a cost issue because sending a text message out to your entire church costs more than sending a text message out to half your church, the women.
Yeah.
So by segmenting your texts and sending targeted messages, you can save your organization a little more money that way as well, and also reduce the chances of frustrating and annoying the recipients by sending them messages that are directly relevant and applicable to the audience. We at ChurchTrac allow users to segment texts and use what we call smart lists, which is how you segment and divide up your directory. So you can send messages to specific groups in your directory through ChurchTrac messaging. That's how we help our leaders.
Yeah. And speaking of text messaging, like if your church isn't currently sending out mass text to your people, I mean, obviously throw out ChurchTrac as an opportunity there for you to check out. But we integrate with Twilio. So we don't actually send the text messages. It's the integration that we offer that sends those messages. And if your church is using a church management platform like ChurchTrac that already integrates with Twilio, you should check out the link I've got in our show notes there. But you can get $100 in texting credit with Twilio right now. I think they still offer that.
Yes.
Which is super cool because I've worked with a lot of ministry leaders who jumped on it when they were originally offering $500.
Yeah.
And they haven't even paid for church texting in like 2 years now at this point.
It's awesome.
Which is incredible. So definitely jump on that. We got a video and everything. We talk about that. So you should check out. All right, this last one here, Matt, is really, this is kind of similar to an audience check. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of not, and it's the relevance check. Before sending a text message, thinking, is this text message relevant to our church? And what I mean by that is like, is it relevant to like our mission and our vision of our church and mm-hmm. what we do? Because I've worked with some church leaders who send out a lot of texts, which it's not wrong to send out a lot of texts if they're relevant and you're segmenting them and stuff, because mm-hmm. you may be sending out, if you have multiple segments that you're sending out texts, you could be sending out 10 texts a week, but maybe those segments are only getting 2 texts a week and how you do it. Mm-hmm. But we always want to be careful not to send messages that are not relevant to what we even do as a church. And so like maybe, for example, you have a church member that has a business, maybe they're like a florist or something, and then like sending out a text message to all your people saying, hey, Joe's Florist Shop is offering half off to all our church members right now. Like as great as that may be, especially during Valentine's Day, to get those flowers for half off because those things aren't cheap. That's not really relevant to what the church does.
No.
And so that can cause a lot of people to be confused, and it can also cause a lot of people to unsubscribe, which is always worst case scenario in text.
And depending on how that message is worded, it could be marked as spam.
Yes.
By the carriers.
Yes, it can.
Because once you get salesy with a text message, the carriers get a little suspicious. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, which I think we talk a little bit about that in one of our other articles, like why your text messages aren't received.
Yeah, church text messages not received, 7 reasons why is the title.
We'll have to, we'll link to that one as well. Like that's a great resource to kind of help you. There is a lot going on in text messaging. Mm-hmm. It really is an art, and it's an art that does take some time to get used to. But that's why we put out all this content to kind of help you all navigate it and everything.
Yeah. So the relevance check it's partly about making sure that it's relevant to the audience. So it goes back to the audience check.
Yes.
But also relevant to the mission and vision of the church. I talked to a church leader that was sending a mass text to everyone in their church every day of the week, 7 days a week.
Oh.
No joke.
So it was every day of the week?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And literally, he was just texting a link to some website that had a daily Bible verse, which is not something that's really going to benefit anyone, even though we're talking about Scripture here.
I mean, the Word of God obviously benefits everyone, but
that's just people are going to tune that out eventually. They're just going to, it's noise. It's white noise. People are inundated with similar messages all day long, every day.
Yeah.
We don't want to add to that. And it also doesn't actually advance the church in any tangible, immediate way.
No.
If you have a message to send your people, send it. But make sure that it's something that actually benefits them and moves the church forward before you hit that send button.
So I like to think of text messaging as kind of like the toppings you put on your ice cream.
Okay.
Follow me here. So like the ice.
You said ice cream. I'm in.
Yes. Like ice cream on its own is already amazing. Let's just be honest. But sometimes when you have the right toppings on that ice cream, maybe it's a little bit of like crumbled up Oreos on there. You got the cherry on top, a little bit of whipped cream, and then that just takes it to another level. That's kind of like text messaging. Like text messaging, you want to add just a few of those little toppings to the core of your whole entire church communication. But if you put too many toppings on that ice cream, all of a sudden your bowl of vanilla ice cream with just a few toppings turns into like a bowl of just like, I've got tons of M&Ms and all these other things in there, and it's not really enjoyable. And so we just have to be very intentional about our texting.
Absolutely.
And as we're intentional and using a checklist like this, it can just enable our church to communicate with our people in ways that we've never thought possible.
I hope you enjoyed this video and that it gave you not only entertainment, but value to help you and your ministry. Be sure to give it a like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to get notified when we come out with new videos. When we're not making our church software, we're putting together resources like this video to help you and your ministry build the body of Christ. Now, I've attached links to the resources we mentioned in this video in the description below, so be sure to click those and check those out. See you next time.